welcome everybody to the Crane Connection. We're here live at the Governmental Affairs Conference 2024. Sitting here with Steve from Westerra Credit Union. I'm going to let you do a more complete introduction of yourself. So go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Steve Schmidle, CEO at Westerra Credit Union in Denver, Colorado. We're a $2 billion credit union. About to celebrate our 90th birthday as a credit union in May.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. 90 years.
Yes.
And keeping the credit union relevant over the 90 years, obviously, is a lot of work, right?
We're working on some media, and it's all based around the idea of 90 years young, because we understand that to remain relevant, you got to be different. You got to be forward focused, and always thinking of yourself in the next form. So we're taking it to heart, and we've made a lot of improvements over the years. We've got a lot more to make.
Well, and you're relatively new to the job,
less
so
than a year. Yeah.
Talk about that shift.
Yeah, it's been quite a shift. It was one that I was working towards for 20 years that I've been in the industry. I realized when I got to credit unions from banking that it was different, and that this was something where somebody who's purpose-driven and wanted to make a difference in their community and in their world could do that in a finance job, which I'd never felt on the banking side of the world. So yeah, those 20 years I've been kind of working towards and trying to broaden my resume and get this opportunity someday. And I was fortunate that about a year ago that opportunity did happen, and got to do it in my hometown, or not my hometown, but where I've lived for a long time, of Denver, Colorado.
And one of those things that you and I were kind of chatting about earlier on is, getting to that CEO level or even C-suite. Like, you hear a lot of talk about like gaps in skill sets of people rising up to those levels. How did you kind of look at that as you were pursuing your career?
Yeah, I grew up on the finance side of the business, financial analyst, controller, accounting, risk, and I felt, or I realized at some point that I had to change my reputation as the numbers guy, right? A very important position and very important knowledge to have to help an organization run, but you don't want to get cornered as the numbers guy either, because you're typically thought of as not strategic, not forward-looking, not willing to take risks or weigh risks or build a brand, all the things that a bigger job requires. So, halfway through my career, I'd say maybe the first third of my career in credit unions, I was the numbers guy. But then I started asking for just opportunities. Somebody would leave the organization, and I asked to do what they were doing and just take it on. So it got me into things like strategic planning, running the strategic planning process, PMO, org excellence, some of the things that are a little bit outside a typical finance person's responsibility, and I got to take that on and show that I had a different side to me, and that I could do more, and I wanted to do more, and it was more just out of being a little bit hungry and taking some risk. Yeah,
well, and that's important too, to ask for the opportunities,
right?
Because they aren't going to necessarily be handed to you. That's for sure.
Some of the things I asked for I didn't get, but I got enough of them that I could start to build out a little broader resume. Yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from with the not being pigeonholed, because I had been a journalist for so long, and when I became publisher, it was like people still saw me as a writer, and I was like, well, I've been doing product development all along. I've been doing like the strategic planning, same kind of thing, and so I ended up like, got to go get that MBA just so people know I got the letters behind my name. I did that as well. It's huge.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge shift to change when you got that brand already building in a certain direction. So, what are some of your initiatives as you're settling into the CEO position and making some changes at the credit union, probably?
Yeah. I think this has been a tough year. I was CFO for 4 years before I took the CEO job, so I knew the shop, I knew the team and the organization, and we had, in those 4 years, changed a lot. We had a pretty aggressive strategic plan, and we moved a lot of cheese and spent a lot of money to try to modernize the organization, especially for that next generation of members. So that, along with the economy that we've been facing this past year, really made this past year a focused time on going back to the basics and integrating everything that we had done. It's one thing to stand up a new online banking system or a new CRM or whatever it might be, but actually making it better and more efficient, both for staff and employees and members. That's another thing altogether. So this past year has been more about finishing that integration, getting the experience right, measuring a little better, how it's working, finding gaps, talking to members, listening, and putting together that roadmap for how we take the next step, which is going to be maybe not such a heavy lift on individual tools or technologies, but more about building the infrastructure that keeps it running and keeps it improving.
Right, because when we're talking about digital transformation, doing it at a strategic level, knowing where you're ending up, where you want to end up, rather than let's chatbot here and whatever there.
Right.
So yeah, looking at that at a more strategic level is super important. You were talking earlier about some upgrades to your tech stack. What are you all particularly focusing on? Anything?
Yeah. I mean, over the past 5 years now, we've changed about everything except our core. New online banking, new CRM, a lot of online account opening. We recognize that even if you get a warm lead on a member, especially if it's a younger member, that their willingness to take that recommendation from their parents or their friends is going to come down to how easy the experience is. And so we spent a lot of time building out that OAO experience, and we need to do so even more so for more products and more members. So it's been everything. We started with data. We understood that data is kind of the key of making things easy and making them quick and making the right decisions with the data. So we spent a lot of time in the early days just building out that middleware layer to help our systems talk to one another. But we've got a long way to go. We've got a good team ready to do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, because the data is like the basis, the platform of how are you going to use it for marketing? Why is it important? What are the trends that you're seeing in the data? So important. So, what do you think of the show so far? Anything interesting? What's piqued your interest?
Yeah, I haven't been to GAC in many years. It's been great to kind of be here and feel the energy again of the whole industry coming together. It's one of those shows that really brings everybody from across the country together, and great learning opportunity. The themes, probably the same themes you're hearing. A lot of talk about CFPB and what's happening with fees and junk fees, and just yesterday I think they announced a safe harbor limit on credit card overdraft or credit card late fees. So it's a lot of talk about that, what the election's going to do, which way it might go depending on how the election goes. And then there's a lot of technology talk, as there always is. AI, of course, big topic of conversation right now. And how do we harness it? How do we protect ourselves if we do use it, and make sure we're ready to compete in the future. Yeah, it's been good.
And again, getting to that purpose of why you're using AI and not just the buzzword because everybody's saying it. And it all boils down, I think, in the end, to member service. Like all of it should be helping you serve your members better, but also your employees. You mentioned that as well. It there's a war for talent right now. Making their jobs easier, not a bad thing.
Yeah, and if you have the right people, I think it can be the one and the same thing, right? You make it easier for them to serve the member if they're the right people. They want to serve the member. They want to help the member. Want to spend more time giving advice than looking up the answer. So it's about helping them do what they're there to do. Help our members. Right.
And if somebody has to bang their head against the wall.
Right.
Because the data they need is on 50 different screens.
They have to look through a pile of procedures to find the answer. It's not going to be a great experience for either. Right.
I really seriously want credit unions to become employers of choice, as well as first choice for financial services. But yeah, I think a lot of times we need to make sure we focus on our employees. But so, how are things in Colorado? How are things going for y'all out there?
It's good. Colorado is a great place to be. I just enjoy living there. It's what drew me out there was just the ethos of it and the experience of being outdoors and such. So on one hand, that's great. It's growing. It's very, very competitive. Cost of living isn't as low as it used to be. It's probably not California levels, but it's getting close. It's getting expensive to live there, so we're helping our members with building out mortgage capabilities and helping them with financial literacy, really giving them the advice and learning they need, which takes us back to our purpose.
Right.
Our purpose is we exist to teach one another to prosper. We're a teachers credit union, so we're about to release a new financial literacy platform that will help not only individual members who are looking for some segment of a learning, not in a big drawn-out webinar or seminar, but something more condensed. That will be delivered soon here this summer, and then it'll also give our teachers, which we have a lot of in our membership base, the content for their classrooms,
right.
financial literacy class,
right. Yeah.
teachings that they're providing. So, it's Colorado's a great place to be. It's a difficult environment, as most large metro areas are. It's competitive, but our members are supporters of Westerra and supporters of credit unions in general, and it's been a great opportunity to continue to serve them.
Yeah, yeah, and as you were talking about the financial literacy programs, so important, especially data everybody cites is 60+% of people are living paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of those are making more than $100,000 a year.
That's right.
But as the cost of living goes up, $100,000 isn't necurely go as far as it used to.
Right, especially if you only have one person working in the household.
Right, absolutely. What do you think? What would you advise somebody, as a new CEO? Advise somebody who's coming up and looking to become CEO at a credit union?
What I've learned on the job this past year and what I got to see a little bit getting ready for this job was the importance of understanding the governance process, right? Present once or twice to a board and get a sense for how the meetings go, but really understanding the importance of the communication and the alignment required between a CEO and his or her board, or his or her team, executive team and leadership team as a whole. And it's a people thing, right? It's not a knowledge thing. Doesn't matter how many basis points you can count on the back of your hand. It's about how do you work with people, communicate, align, work through the issues or the misunderstandings, the misalignment that might be out there, and bring everybody back together to move towards the same goal. Getting all those arrows pointing in the right direction, the same direction.
Yeah, I'm vice chair at my credit union.
Okay. You would know, yeah.
Yeah, no, and we hired not a first-time CEO, but a newer CEO a few years back, and just you saw it through the process from the other perspective, of course, of doing the interview process and seeing, like, by the time you're presenting to the board, you're not talking a lot about your basis points or whatever. I mean, the gentleman who's our current CEO, he's talking about, I grew up, my dad's my hero, and this is why, and this is what it taught me. Like, it ends up, relevant to the job. It, taught me hard work, taught me that kind of stuff. But it's a lot more about personality and the interaction. And you feel like you can work with that person or those people, because it goes both ways, know.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Because if the CEO isn't going to be happy, then ain't nobody going to be happy either,
right?
So, anyway, so final thoughts. What do you think credit union audience should know? What do you think is most important for credit unions right now?
Yeah, I think we're at I've heard a lot of talk about how we're at this point in innovation and technology change that probably has only happened a couple times in history. Somebody was just saying something about 100 years ago we had electricity, cars, automobiles, and there's a third thing that all happened at the same time. It just totally changed the way we thought as a society. And with AI and blockchain and some of these things that are changing, especially the financial industry, from our viewpoint, it might be one of those periods again.
Yeah.
So I think it's staying aware, right? As a credit union, we can't always be front and center and tip of the spear in that kind of change, but understanding what that will mean for us, what it means for our members, how we can support them through that. And that's what ultimately I think will produce the relevancy that differentiates ourselves.
Right.
It's been really hard, I was mentioning to you before, it's really hard to really zero in on a value proposition these days when the competition is and the advancements are happening so quickly. But at our core as a credit union is the ability to be there for our members, to help them through change and prepare them for the future. And I don't think this period will be any different.
Right.
It's about remaining relevant and being there for them.
And that's the focus where it needs to stay, right?
That's right. That's what's brought us along these past 90 years for Westerra is being there. Things change, and trust is what we're all, the bedrock of everything we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
Appreciate it, Steve.
Thank you.